I didn't think I would be rushing to make this video. However, we got our first teaser for the next update, so I really wanted to get this out there so that we can see if my predictions are correct or not. In today's video, we're going to be discussing my predictions on the next StarPath, but I want to get this out there before we get the StarPath teasers. And then of course, when we do actually get the teasers, we can compare how right or how wrong we were. So that's why I've rushed to get this video out. So yeah, fingers crossed I can get this done and out there before we get the official StarPath teasers. So let's get straight into it. My prediction for the next StarPath is a pirates and mermaids theme. I know, real original, right? Now, I do have a few reasons behind this though, so we'll go into that before I sort of dive into some of the items I think we might see. So we are going to cover that a bit later on, and yeah, let's first get into the reasons for this prediction. So for my first reason, I'm going to talk about how the StarPaths do tend to have some tie-in to the update. For instance, we had the Majesty and Magnolia StarPath. We've obviously got the current StarPath, which is very Wonderland themed. We had lovely monsters with the Monsters Inc. update, and the list does go on. Now, that's not to say that we always get a StarPath related to the update. For instance, we did have Frost and Fairies with Sally's arrival. However, that was winter themed, which ties in with the winter season that StarPath span across. So with Peter Pan, the connection to pirates does make sense. Peter's biggest opposition is Captain Hook, a notorious pirate, so it really makes sense to add in some pirate theming or element. We also have the mermaids from Neverland 2, which again ties quite nicely to Peter Pan. Whilst we often think of Ariel with mermaids, I think we can also still get that Peter Pan link too. Now, my second reason is that we are actually coming to summer. So earlier I mentioned about seasonal vibes with StarPaths, with the Sally update and the Frost and Fairy StarPath. So if we go for the pirates and mermaids theming, it does still have that seasonal vibe. You know, when I think of summer, I do think of beach getaways, sun, sea and sand. So pirates and mermaids ties in perfectly to a coastal themed StarPath. We could also get some beach themed decor, which would blend in perfectly with the theming, or even some water themed decor, which is something I think the game lacks, and this would be the perfect opportunity to add that in. Now, I do also want to touch on briefly, because I've mentioned seasons and stuff like that, I appreciate half the world has seasons, like the two halves of the world have opposite seasons. I am going based on the seasons that we see based on where Gameloft are located. So Gameloft, there is I believe a base in France and I believe a base in Montreal, but basically we're going by the Gameloft seasonal changes, if that makes sense, based on how they experience the seasons, which typically tends to be the pattern that games follow in general when they do seasonal things. They tend to be based on like the northern hemisphere of the world. So I do appreciate the in Australia and things like that. It's probably like winter for you guys, or come into winter. People in South America, obviously they're probably coming to their winter seasons as well and things. So I do appreciate there is a bit of a difference here, but that's where I'm coming from when I say seasonal. It is centered more around sort of the places where Gameloft have their main bases, which will be experienced in summer very, very soon. And now we have my third reason, which is the surveys. The surveys have previously mentioned the idea of a mermaids themed StarPath, so it could be something that they've had in the works for a while and they were hoping they received positive feedback to those options. And I think, you know, with the hints in the survey, it's very possible. It's very possible. It's probably something they've had planned, something they have ideas for, and perhaps it was relatively well received, so they're quite happy to introduce it. Whilst from what I've seen in the community, I wouldn't necessarily think mermaids was the top pick. I definitely could see people being happy for it, and it was potentially an underdog popular option, to be fair. It very well could have been. So I definitely think the surveys not only give an indication of what's potentially to come, they obviously give Gameloft an idea on what is well or isn't well received. So if there was positive feedback or plenty of people suggesting mermaids as an option, it would just tie in perfectly. So that's the reasons behind my prediction. Why don't we talk about what items we might potentially see? Now, the first thing I want to touch on is the dream styles. I know there are so many dream styles people want in this game, such as a princess style for Vanellope, a human form for Beast, and even a style for Tiana, who sadly did not get one with her update. So I know y'all are going to be really mad when I say this, but I think we could get a dream style for Ariel. Ariel feels like the most obvious character to get a dream style in a mermaid and pirate themed StarPath based on the characters we currently have. But what dream style could we see? There are a few styles that Ariel has in The Little Mermaid that we don't have yet in game. But my big expectation would actually be the dress from the end of the movie. The one where she emerges from the sea to join Eric in her happily ever after. The sparkly dress is just so iconic, and I would love to see that for her. I do think there's also a few outfits that we see Eric in during the movie, so perhaps we could have a couple's dream style come in for the pair of them, which would allow us to have 2 dream styles in the StarPath. Now, my other prediction was that they might go a bit generic and bring in another Mickey and Friends themed kind of dream style. I obviously do not want that. I am sick to death of all the Mickey and Friends dream styles. I do not really care for it. The only Mickey and Friends dream style that I think I really want to see is Mickey in his Sorcerer Mickey outfit. That's all I want. I think other than that, I'm not really interested in any more Mickey and Friends styles. However, Mickey and Friends do have a lot of pirate themed outfits that they've been seen in sort of parks outfits or just general media. So getting one of those in like a pirate themed outfit, I don't think would be that big of a stretch. Now let's talk outfits for our character. Now we actually have a lot of pirate themed clothing in game, so I'm not sure if we'll get anything too generic in terms of pirate clothing. My only thought would be a traditional kind of black eye patch, because we don't really have that in game. But other than that, I don't think we're going to get any kind of generic pirate clothing. However, I do think we could see a Captain Hook outfit come for our character, perhaps even with the hook hand detail, whether it's a holdable accessory that our avatar wears or just part of an inbuilt kind of onesie costume. I just think that would be a lovely little addition to the game. Another thing I think they could go with on the topic of kind of onesies is perhaps a Lost Boys inspired outfit. There's obviously the different kind of animals that they're dressed up as. So I could see us get any one of these really. And it would work for the kind of onesie styles that they do seem to like a little bit. Now my next prediction would also be a Smee inspired outfit. That could come in parts, so we could get the hat, the top and the shorts. So that would add a lot of versatility in terms of potential outfit combinations we could do with our regular kind of clothing that we have in game. Now the other thing I was also debating, which is more leaning towards a mermaid inspired outfit, would be adding in a mermaid tail. But I wasn't entirely sure how they could do that, because I suspect it might be quite hard in terms of animation when we think about the poses our characters have, the stances they have. I had a feeling that might be quite difficult. However, then it obviously hit me. We could just get a mermaid style skirt. It might come off a bit costumey, but there are kind of Ariel inspired costumes out there that make use of that mermaid style skirt and then kind of like a shell type top or crop top or even a full length top kind of thing. So I suspect we could actually get something like that for our avatar, and it might be a good middle ground to create in a kind of mermaid style look without sort of navigating the difficulties of having an actual fin flapping around. Another thing that I also debated was whether or not we would get some form of body paint or makeup, and this could be our first introduction of tattoos to the game. Now, I'm not sure if it would come under a face paint or a body paint category. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like this would be the perfect time to add tattoos into the game without it feeling out of place or too grown up. We do often think of tattoos and pirates kind of together, so I could really see that coming as like a kind of face paint makeup inspired addition. I think it would be really fun. I think it would be good. Sure, the pirate tattoos might come across a bit like generic or uninspired, but I think it would still be fun and a great way to add tattoos in, as I said, without it feeling out of place. And then the last thing that I want to touch on in terms of sort of clothing and accessories would actually be a pirate sword. Now, I am not adverse to the idea of adding weapons into this game. It seems like Disney is open to that. I was originally unsure if they would be, but given all the weaponry we received with the Mulan update, given the fact that we have a lightsaber in game, I think getting a sword would not be too strange. And it could be either a traditional sword like Hook has, or it could be the wooden toy swords that we see the boys play with at the beginning of the Peter Pan movie. Either option I think would be fun. If they want to not make it too serious and violent, the wooden toy swords would be a perfect middle ground. But obviously an iconic pirate sword I think would be absolutely fun to have, and I think would make the perfect handheld accessory. Now, the next topic of conversations will be about critters or companions. I do suspect we will get something, and I'm not gonna lie, when I was trying to think over this topic, I was really struggling. I was trying to think what could work, and my initial thoughts were we must surely get some form of a crocodile or a turtle. Like, they are the only critters that kind of made sense to me. You know, we could see him perhaps in a little pirate outfit or some kind of cool shell or coral type look. But I kind of wasn't really hyped for that. And we already have a pirate bird companion. So whilst I would have suggested a pirate parrot, we already have that. So that's not likely to come. However, whilst I was thinking about birds, I remembered Scuttle, and I suspect we could actually have a reskin of the ravens to look like Scuttle, the derpy little seagull. I think it would be perfect. I mean, sure, it's not Peter Pan themed like the Wonderland StarPath had an Alice themed companion, but I do think it would tie in with a mermaid element, because obviously Scuttle is from The Little Mermaid. And I don't think necessarily Scuttle is that high of a character one that people would want him as a villager in game. He very well could do, but I could also see him just as as I said, a generic kind of animal skin. I mean, even if it wasn't Scuttle specifically, a derpy seagull, just a generic seagull, would be a great option, I think, for the game, really. And then also, I will add it in here, so you heard it here first. Premium shop predictions for next update. I suspect we could get Nana as our first dog companion in the premium shop. But that's going to be covered in another video, so make sure you are subscribed for that when it drops. Now let's talk decor, and I think this would be the perfect time for Gameloft to introduce some more water decor elements. You know, ways to decorate the sea by Dazzle Beach and perhaps some of the other waterways in our valley. I feel like the kind of water decor is very overlooked. So I would absolutely love to see some more additions in that sense. So we could see some coral type reefs coming out of the water, you know, decor that just sits on the top, adds a bit of color to the background. We obviously have the kind of corally decor on Dazzle Beach anyway, but it's a bit of a shame that we don't have that as some actual decor for our valley. You know, we could have it with like little shell details on it. That would be fun. We could have some seaweed type reeds which would stick out from the water. And I also think of the Kiss the Girl scene from The Little Mermaid, where there's kind of like that willow tree or something in the water. And I think it would be fun to get some water-based trees. It might seem like a very, very silly notion, but I think it would be fun for replicating that Kiss the Girl scene. It would be perfect for dream snaps. Now, another item that I think could be really, really fun is some shipwreck decor for the water. We do have the shipwreck boat from the Rift in Time DLC, but that only specifically goes on land. So I think it would be nice to have a version that goes in the water. Another addition that might be fun is some water-based floaties. That would really create a more beach-like resort feel, something a bit more on the fun and playful side. I don't think it necessarily fits into the mermaid and pirate feel, but it would just be that kind of fun beach summery vibe. And whilst we're on the topic of beach and summery vibes, I think some of those like posh lounger beds that you get at hotel resorts would be another fun addition in the game. We kind of have something similar with the Moana collection. There's a long kind of bed item that you can get, but imagine something like that with kind of a canopy over the top. I think would be really, really fun and would really give us a classier style beach decor to add to our game. And another thing that I would like to see is actually another pool in game. We do have the kind of Moana themed pool. At least I think it's from the Moana collection. I'll have it on screen anyway for you to see. That is really pretty. I do quite like that. But I don't necessarily think the foliage always fits in like everywhere in the valley. So another pool would be helpful. The large concrete pool is just a bit too rigid and modern and ugly looking. So I would like something with a bit more style to it, a bit more of an aesthetic, you know, perhaps lean into some kind of Grecian vibes for it or something. I think that would make for some nice beachside decor, but also versatile to use in the valley in other areas. Now, my last prediction is going to be on the topic of the house skin that we usually get towards the end of the STARPATH. And again, this was something that I really struggled with when kind of thinking what would work. I did debate about a boat, but we do already have Eric's boat as a premium shop house skin. I do assume we're going to get Hook's boat whenever he decides to join the valley. So I wasn't too sure if they would actually go down that route. So I started looking into Parks Inspo, because we know that Gameloft loves a good Parks reference. So I was doing a little deep dive on Google and I came across Tortuga Tavern. And I think this style of house really has a strong possibility of coming. There's also the large tall clock tower building, which I think is part of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. But obviously you park experts can correct me in the comments. But again, I love the overall aesthetics of it, that kind of beigey sandy vibe, and just the overall look is quite cool. And then my other thought was about the Disney Polynesian Resort. which I think could offer inspiration from either the main building look or the little villa houses by the water's edge. We did have the Animal Kingdom Lodge, which I think was a premium shop item, but having like a kind of inspo in terms of the Polynesian Resort could make sense for a STARPATH house at the end of the STARPATH. So I think that's got a high possibility as well. Now I think that just about rounds up my predictions for a Pirates and Mermaid style STARPATH. What items would you like to see in this style of STARPATH? And if you don't think a mermaid or pirates themed STARPATH is coming, what are your possible predictions down below? I would love to hear from you in the comments, and we can wait and see if we are right when the teasers do come down. So I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like and comment, and also subscribe for more Disney Dreamlight Valley and theory and prediction content. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll be sure to see you all in the next one. Bye guys!